It was a cold, rainy afternoon, the kind of day when the sky stays gray, and the wind makes you pull your jacket tighter. The gas station on the edge of town was almost empty, except for a few cars coming and going. Inside the small store, worker behind the counter wiped the counter for the third time, mostly out of habit. He wasn't a man who made a lot of money, but he was honest, came on time, and worked hard because that's all he knew. The bell above the door rang softly, and he looked up. A young mother walked in, her hair wet from the rain, holding the hand of a small child. The child was shivering a little, wrapped in a thin jacket that looked too small for him. The mother walked slowly toward the counter, like she wasn't sure she should even be there. Her eyes were tired, and there was something heavy about the way she moved, as if life had been too hard for too long. "Hi," she said softly, almost like she was embarrassed to talk. "I need some gas, but I don't have enough money. I just need to get home. Can I pay what I have? It's not much." The worker looked at her. She wasn't lying, anyone could see that. Her hands shook slightly as she opened her small purse, counting a few crumpled bills and coins. It didn't even come close to what a full tank would cost. Her eyes darted toward the door, as if she was thinking about leaving before anyone could say no. He didn't ask questions. He didn't ask why she didn't have enough or where she was going. He just looked at the tired face, the scared child holding her hand, and felt something inside him shift. Life was already hard for her. She didn't need someone to make it harder. "How much do you need?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then said, "About $15 more." "I'm sorry. I can pay you back. I just need to get home." The worker looked at the child again. The boy was looking at the candy shelves like he hadn't eaten in a while, but he didn't ask for anything. He just held his mother's hand and stayed quiet. The worker didn't think twice. He reached into his own pocket, pulled out his card, and walked to the register. "Don't worry about it," he said softly. "I'll take care of it." The mother blinked, like she didn't hear him right. You don't have to do that," she said quickly, her voice trembling. "It's okay," he said, giving her a small smile. "Go fill up your tank. Get home safe." For a moment, she just stood there, like she didn't know how to react. Then, her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much. I don't know what to say." "Just take care of yourself," he said. "That's all." She turned to go, and the boy looked back at the worker before leaving. For the first time since he came in, the boy smiled, a small, shy smile that said more than words could. The worker watched them through the window as they filled up the car. The rain was still coming down, tapping on the glass, but inside he felt a small warmth. It wasn't much money. It wasn't a big thing. But sometimes the smallest things mean the most to someone else. He didn't do it for thanks. He didn't do it because he wanted anything in return. He just believed people should help each other when they can. That was all. When the car drove away, the worker went back to his usual tasks. He stocked the shelves, checked the register, and swept the floor near the entrance. The store was quiet again, but something about the moment stayed with him. He didn't even notice the clock ticking toward the end of his shift. What he didn't know was that this small act of kindness was about to set off a chain of events that would change his life forever. The rain had slowed down to a drizzle when the worker finished restocking the shelves. He glanced at the clock above the counter. It was almost the end of his shift, and he was looking forward to a quiet evening. Maybe he'd make some tea at home, sit by the window, and listen to the rain as he always did. But the peace didn't last long. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the gas station store as the manager stormed in. He was a man with a loud voice and a sharp look, someone who cared more about rules and money than people. He didn't even take off his wet coat as he walked straight to the counter, slamming a folder of sales reports down hard enough to make the worker jump. "What is this?" the manager demanded, his voice rising above the hum of the cooler. He pointed at the report like it had personally insulted him. Why is there $15 missing from the till? The worker wiped his hands on his apron and stayed calm. He explained about the woman, how she didn't have enough money and needed help to get home. How he had paid the difference himself so she could leave safely. He thought the manager might at least understand. It wasn't a big amount. It wasn't like someone had stolen from the store. It was kindness, nothing more. But the manager's face twisted like he had heard the worst thing in the world. "You did what?" he shouted. "Do you think this is a charity? This is a business. You can't just give away money because you feel sorry for someone." "I paid from my own pocket," the worker said quietly. "The store didn't lose anything. That doesn't matter." The manager snapped. His voice carried through the store, making the few customers nearby turn their heads. "You broke the rules. We don't allow things like this. If someone can't pay, they leave. That's how it works." End of story. The worker stayed silent. There was nothing to say. How could helping someone be wrong? The manager paced behind the counter, muttering under his breath about irresponsible employees and company policies. Then he stopped, turned, and said the words that froze the worker where he stood. "You're fired," the manager said coldly. "Clear out your things. I want you gone before the next shift comes in." The worker blinked in shock. Fired? For helping a mother and child? He opened his mouth to speak, but then closed it again. What was the point? The manager had already made up his mind. A woman standing near the coffee machine gasped softly. Another customer whispered to his friend, shaking his head. Even they knew this was too harsh. But the manager didn't care. He handed the worker his last paycheck like it was nothing and told him to leave. Slowly, the worker removed his apron and set it on the counter. He didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He just gathered his few things from under the counter: an old lunchbox, a jacket, and a small notebook where he wrote down reminders. As he packed, the customers kept watching. Some looked angry, others just sad. One older man muttered, "World's gone cold when kindness gets you fired." The worker gave a small smile to no one in particular. He didn't regret what he did. He would do it again if he had to. But as he looked at the clock, he wondered how he would pay his own bills now. The rent, the groceries, the electricity. Life was already hard, and this job, as simple as it was, kept him afloat. The rain outside started again, heavier this time, tapping against the glass doors. The worker zipped up his jacket and slung the lunchbox over his shoulder. He was about to step out into the storm when something unexpected happened. The low, smooth purr of an engine rolled into the gas station parking lot. It wasn't the sound of an ordinary car. It was deep, powerful, like the kind of car most people only saw in magazines or movies. Heads turned as a sleek black Rolls Royce pulled up slowly in front of the store. The lights reflected off the wet pavement, making it look even more expensive under the gray sky. The manager, still fuming, stopped mid-sentence. The customers stared through the glass doors. No one in this small town ever saw a car like that here. The door opened, and out stepped a man in a tailored suit, his shoes shining despite the rain. He carried himself with quiet confidence, the kind of person who didn't need to speak loudly to be noticed, and he was walking straight toward the worker. The gas station had gone completely silent. Even the humming of the coolers and the tapping of the rain seemed to fade as everyone watched the man from the Rolls Royce step inside. His suit looked like it cost more than most people's monthly rent, and the way he carried himself made it clear he wasn't just any customer stopping for gas. He paused for a moment, looking around the small store. His eyes landed on the worker, who was standing by the counter with his lunchbox in hand, ready to leave after being fired. "Are you the one?" the man asked, his voice calm but firm. The worker blinked. I'm sorry?" "The one who helped the woman and child earlier today," the man said. His expression didn't change, But there was something sharp in his gaze, something that made the manager step back a little. The worker nodded slowly. Yes, she needed gas to get home. She didn't have enough money, so I covered the difference. The man's jaw tightened, and for a moment, no one said a word. Then the man turned slightly, his eyes landing on the manager. Is it true you fired him for that? The manager straightened his shoulders, trying to look confident even though he was clearly unsettled. We have rules here, he said quickly. Employees can't just give away company money. It's against policy. The man in the suit raised an eyebrow. Company money? He looked at the worker. Did you use your own? Yes, the worker said simply. It wasn't the store's money. I paid from my pocket. The man's eyes snapped back to the manager. And you fired him? The manager swallowed. It doesn't matter. Rules are rules. We can't have employees doing whatever they want. But the man didn't let him finish. He turned back to the worker. Do you know who the woman you helped is? The worker shook his head. No, she just looked like she needed help. That's all. For the first time, a small smile appeared on the man's face. But it wasn't directed at the manager or the customers. It was for the worker. She's my sister, he said softly. She was on her way back from visiting our mother at the hospital. Her wallet was stolen earlier in the day. She called me after she met you. Told me about the stranger who paid for her gas so she could get home to her kids. The worker didn't know what to say. He hadn't expected anything like this. The man looked around the store, then fixed his gaze on the manager again. This man helped my family when he didn't have to. And you punished him for it? The manager looked nervous now, but he tried to stand his ground. Look, I didn't know who she was, okay? We have policies. He broke them. I can't make exceptions because someone decides to play hero. The man in the suit took a step closer, his voice still calm, but carrying the weight of someone used to being in charge. No, what you can't do is see basic human decency when it's right in front of you. He didn't break anything but your heartless rules. The customers murmured in agreement. One older woman said loudly, firing him was wrong. He did the right thing. Another man nodded, crossing his arms. World needs more people like him, not less. The manager's face flushed, but he didn't respond. The man in the suit turned back to the worker. What's your name? The worker told him quietly, still unsure where this was going. The man nodded. I came here because my sister told me what happened. I wanted to meet the man who helped her when no one else would. The worker shrugged lightly. I didn't do it for thanks, he said softly. She just needed help. That's all there is to it. For a moment, the man studied him, like he was weighing something in his mind. Then he slipped a card from his coat pocket and handed it to him. Come see me tomorrow, he said. I have something for you, something better than this place. The worker looked down at the card. It had the name of a company he had heard of before, a big one in the city. People said it paid well, that it treated its employees like family. He looked back up in surprise, but the man was already heading for the door. The Rolls Royce engine started again, low and smooth. Before the car pulled away into the rain, the customers kept staring at the worker, some smiling like they already knew something good was about to happen. The manager, on the other hand, looked like he had just swallowed a lemon. The gas station felt different after the Rolls Royce left. The customers had gone back to their lives, but the air was thick with whispers. The worker stood by the counter holding the business card like it was made of gold. He didn't know what to think. Was this real? Could something good really come out of such a terrible day? The manager, on the other hand, paced back and forth like a man who had just made a big mistake, but didn't want to admit it. He kept muttering under his breath, glancing at the door as if expecting the man in the suit to come back and yell at him. But he didn't. Single quotes. An hour passed. The rain outside grew heavier, beating against the glass like it was trying to get in. The worker sat on a small bench near the entrance, his lunchbox beside him. He had nowhere else to be. No job to go back to. No reason to rush home. Then headlights cut through the storm again. The low purr of the same Rolls Royce engine filled the parking lot. It stopped right in front of the store, sleek and shining under the rain. This time, the man in the suit wasn't alone. Another car pulled up behind him, a black SUV. A driver stepped out, holding an umbrella, and opened the door for the man in the suit like he was someone very important. He walked in calmly, the storm behind him making his appearance even more dramatic. People inside the store turned again to watch. The manager froze near the counter. The worker stood slowly, unsure what was about to happen. The man didn't waste time. He walked straight to the worker. "My sister told me more about you," he said, his voice carrying through the store. "She said you didn't hesitate. You didn't ask for anything. You just helped her when she needed it most." The worker nodded quietly. "She looked like she needed someone to care," he said softly. "It wasn't a big deal." The man shook his head. "It was a big deal. People don't do things like that anymore." Most would have turned her away. He then turned to the manager, who stood stiff behind the counter, his face pale. "You," the man said sharply. "You fired this man for kindness. You have any idea what you've done?" The manager stammered, trying to explain himself. I was following company policy. We can't just let employees give things away for free." "It wasn't free," the man interrupted firmly. "He paid for it himself, out of his own pocket. You fired a good man because you couldn't see past your own rules." The manager had no response. His mouth opened, then closed again like he didn't know what to say. The man in the suit looked around at the people watching. "The world needs more people like him," he said, pointing at the worker. "Not people like you." Someone in the back clapped softly, then another joined in. Soon, the small store filled with the sound of hands coming together. The worker stood awkwardly, not used to so many eyes on him, but people were nodding, smiling, even shaking their heads at the manager. The man turned back to the worker. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "This," he said, handing it over, "is a job offer. My company needs people who care about others, people who can be trusted. This isn't charity. This is because you earned it." The worker unfolded the paper slowly. It wasn't just a job offer. It was for a position in the city with a salary far better than anything he had before. Health benefits, paid time off, even opportunities to move up. He stared at it like he couldn't believe it was real. I don't know what to say," he whispered. "Say yes," the man said with a small smile. "Come see me tomorrow. We'll get everything started." The customers began clapping again. One man said loudly, "About time good things happen to good people." The manager stood frozen, his face red with embarrassment. He tried to speak, but the man in the suit cut him off one last time. "You fired him because you couldn't see his worth," he said coldly. "I see it, and I promise you, he's going to do better than this place ever could." The worker felt his throat tighten. He hadn't cried in years, but now his eyes burned. He nodded slowly, holding the paper like it was the key to a new life. As the man left again, the worker realized his world had just turned upside down, and this time, in the best way possible. The rain finally began to ease as the Rolls Royce disappeared into the distance once more. The worker stood near the counter, staring at the job offer in his hands. It felt unreal, like he had just woken up from a strange dream where one moment he was being fired, and the next, a man in a suit was offering him a better life. The customers slowly left the store, some patting him on the shoulder before they went. "Good things come back around," one woman said with a warm smile. Another man nodded and added, "World needs more folks like you. Glad someone noticed." The manager, on the other hand, avoided looking at him. He busied himself with paperwork. That didn't need doing, his face tight with regret and anger, though it was hard to tell which one he felt more. The worker didn't say anything to him. There was nothing left to say. He had given years of quiet, honest work to this place, and it ended with being thrown out for a simple act of kindness. But now, none of that mattered, because tomorrow, everything was going to change. He walked home that evening with the folded paper in his pocket, his shoes splashing through puddles on the sidewalk. The streets smelled of rain, and the sky was slowly clearing, streaks of gold, light breaking through the clouds. For the first time in a long time, he felt like the world wasn't as heavy as it used to be. When he reached his small apartment, he sat at the old kitchen table and unfolded the job offer again. The pay was more than double what he made at the gas station. Health insurance, paid holidays, even training for bigger roles if he wanted to grow in the company. He let out a shaky breath. He wasn't used to good luck. His life had been made up of small paychecks, long hours, and doing the right thing because it was right, not because it ever got him anything in return. But now, one small act had changed everything. The next morning, he put on his cleanest shirt and took the bus into the city. He kept checking the address on the business card as he walked through streets filled with tall buildings and people in expensive clothes. When he reached the office tower with the company name on it, he paused for a moment at the front doors. They were big and made of shining glass, and for a second, he wondered if they would even let someone like him inside, but they did. The receptionist greeted him kindly, already expecting him. "He's waiting for you," she said with a smile. "Top floor." When the elevator doors opened upstairs, the man in the suit was there, the same calm confidence in his eyes. He shook the worker's hand firmly. "I'm glad you came," he said. The worker nodded. I didn't know if this was real," he admitted softly. "Oh, it's real," the man said. "My sister told me what happened in detail. She said you didn't hesitate, didn't ask for anything. That's rare. People who care about others, even strangers, are the kind of people I want in my company." He led him into a large office with windows that overlooked the whole city. The worker sat down carefully, feeling out of place among the leather chairs and polished floors. The man explained the job. It wasn't hard work like pumping gas in the rain, but it mattered: customer service, training, and eventually managing people. "You'll have to learn," the man said. "But I think you'll do well. You have the right heart for it." The worker agreed quietly, still overwhelmed. "Thank you," he said finally. "I don't know how to repay you." "Do the job." "Well," the man said simply, "and when you see someone else struggling, help them, just like you helped my sister. That's all the repayment I need." By the end of the week, the worker had signed the papers, received his first uniform for the company, and started training. The paychecks were bigger than he had ever seen. He moved into a better apartment, bought a used car that didn't break down every other month, and even sent some money to his parents to help with their bills. Sometimes he thought about that rainy afternoon at the gas station, about the crying child and the tired mother, about the angry manager who thought kindness was a mistake. And sometimes, late at night, when he drove past that same gas station on his way home, he would see the bright lights inside and the new workers behind the counter. He wondered if they knew the story of the man who got fired there and ended up with a life he never dreamed of. Because sometimes one small act of kindness really can change everything.